Contact. Asha travels hundreds of kilometers to the northeast, first crossing the rest of France, then a small section of Belgium, then Luxembourg, followed by Germany. She encounters scorpions, phoenix, snakes, and sometimes even vultures along the way. She can't help but be pleased every time she comes across life, as it proves to her that nature has adapted, despite the challenges. Nature always finds a balance, regardless of what that balance may be. On the way, a very slight change in the environment becomes apparent, and after 5 days or so, it starts to change for the better, with greenery appearing. Not the typical European greenery of the past, of course, but greenery all the same. She can't help but show a radiant smile. As she continues, and after more than 1,000 kilometers from Paris, representing 9 full days of walking, she sees bushes and trees appearing. They are a certain type of pine, quite resistant to drought. Asha reaches the outskirts of an ancient Polish city, Poznan, which, like the other cities, is buried. But along the way, she saw more and more animals, some small mammals being possibly new species. She keeps heading northeast. Small wetlands appear, teeming with insects and animals, a true jewel of nature in perfect harmony. Asha takes a break in the middle of the afternoon, because she can't help but admire the splendor of these magnificent landscapes. Listening to birds singing, frogs croaking, crickets chirping, the wind in the grass and the tree leaves. A deep sense of peace takes hold of her. After a couple of hours, she decides to get back on the road. But as she is about to leave, a bear stands just a few meters from her. The animal stares at her. She has no intention of hurting it, so she starts sprinting at phenomenal speed. The bear chases after her, but in vain. Despite its speed of over 50 kilometers per hour, Asha is already far away. She has to go around the part of Russia between Poland and Lithuania, because it is completely underwater. Passing some 20 kilometers from Kaunas, a city often made fun of by the French for its resemblance to a French word with similar phonetics, Asha feels as she is being watched. She continues walking on her guard. But after a few minutes, "Stop!" shouts a man. Asha is startled, puts her hand in front of her as if trying to stop an invisible entity. She is somewhere between immense joy and intense fear. "Couchez tous les abbés!" shouts the same man. I don't understand what you're saying," says Asha. "On dit tous les campfires?" says the man emerging from his hiding place, accompanied by a woman and a dog. "I don't understand your language. I don't know what you're asking me." Asha tries to explain this sentence with gestures. She points to her mouth and makes an X, crossing her forearms. "Je non attaquerai nostro langage," says the woman. "Je attaquerai English, moi pense. Nostros apporte ha Almeida," retorts the man. "Listen, I feel like you're speaking a language that never existed before. But I recognize a few words. You said, moi penser, like me thinking, and Medina, like town, right? What are you thinking? Are you going to take me to your city?" Asha deduces from this interaction that it is a completely new language. She recognizes a multitude of languages in the sentences used, but needs more to decipher it. Hearing about the city excites her to the core. Suevinosa, says the man, gesturing with his hands to follow. Asha complies and follows the couple. On the road, she prefers to remain silent. They don't look threatening, just curious, but she still remains on her guard. Quoi tous ces nems? Asks the woman. But Asha is not yet able to answer. So the woman puts one hand over her heart and says, Ma name a mes Zephara. Ah, I see. Ma name a me Asha, she replies. Zephara smiles. They continued on their way, even though it was getting dark. But after around 3 hours and 30 minutes of walking, around midnight, the group stops to rest, eat, and sleep. Once the camp is set up, the couple prepares a vegetable-based meal, a mixture of lentils, peas, beet, carrot, garlic, and thyme. Asha eats with them, so as not to arouse unnecessary suspicion for the time being. Even if she doesn't digest, her system can convert food into extra energy. This function was intended for an android to accompany during a meal. The woman and the dog decide to keep watch for the night, but Asha convinces her with gesture that she can keep watch for her with the dog. She accepts and goes to get some rest. Asha then stands guard with the canine. It's a Labrador. The animal's coat is black, but a light brown is sprinkled across the front of its forelegs. Both stay close to the fire, watching their surroundings. Only the sound of wood crackling under the flames, a gentle breeze, and the night crickets can be heard. At sunup, they have a quick breakfast, a little water and an apple each. After breaking camp, they set off for another 4 hours, drinking water sparingly. In the distance, structures begin to emerge. The excitement builds. It's exhilarating. Humans, a community of humans. The town doesn't look very big, perhaps for around 1,000 to 1,500 people. The architecture is astonishing, with everything blending together, just like their language. Cultural variety is everywhere. Each building shows a piece of its culture. It's incredible. A mix of European, Arab Maghrebin, and Asian to a lesser extent. The city's streets are packed with people from a wide variety of ethnic backgrounds. The man shouts something incomprehensible and heads for a building slightly larger than the others. Once inside, Asha is invited to sit on a chair in the middle of a semicircular grandstand. The grandstand is made up of benches in several slightly elevated rows. Gradually, the room fills with people. Once it's full, one person speaks to another at the foot of the stands. Pekanawapes men an Aztecus, says the man on the left. Noviset, says the man on the right. A man on the right in the stands rises and speaks. Bonjour, manem me farisen. Dobrodols a marjalsar. Povartuk presente yuzadir? Says the man. A silence hangs. The man signals Asha to speak. She complies. My name is Asha. I'm sorry, that's all I know how to say in your language, says Asha. You only speak English? How can that be? Replies the man with a strong accent. Everyone whispers to each other. Then Asha speaks again. Well, I've come a long way. It's a bit complicated to explain. Orator, des men à S120 tafsir quadishifespar, a fustotu a sunloxan. Asha twigs when she hears AS120 and feels like gagging, even though she actually can't. It's a service android. The man on the left asks something to the man on the right, who then speaks in their language. The person in the stands says something again, and the man on the right speaks again. Hello, I am SA120. I am a service android who will be acting as an interpreter during this session. Your interlocutor is Farisen, who welcomes you warmly and asks you to introduce yourself. So, you are indeed a service android. Let me introduce myself. My name is Asha, but unfortunately, I don't have much more to say about myself. The only thing I can tell you is that my journey began in Greenland, and then I spent several weeks traveling the world in the search of a human community. You can't imagine my joy now that I'm finally standing before you. The android translates to the assembly, to which a new person takes over. SA120 translates. Nice to meet you, Asha. I'm Medivi. Welcome to Marjalsar. But what do you mean you're from Greenland? Have humans returned there? And happy to find a human community? I've traveled over 5,000 kilometers to get here. I've got a lot to tell. Do you have time? The android translates to answer. We've got time. Go ahead. Asha tells her story down to the smallest detail. From the deception, to the death of the humans, to the revelations, to the time elapsed. Everything. The assembly ends up completely stunned by the whole story. Out of respect, they offer Asha access to the library after the interview. The assembly concludes that Asha shouldn't be a threat, but they still want SA120 to verify her story by accessing her data via data sharing. Asha explains that she is afraid the program will contaminate the service android, rendering it unusable. The assembly insists and asks Asha to check the code and modify it if necessary. But she refuses, for fear of destroying what makes her who she is. The group conciliates. They understand what's at stake and agree that Asha will not be held responsible if anything happens to SA120. She doesn't feel comfortable risking to destroy the android, but she has no choice. In front of the entire hall, Asha shares her data with the android. And after a few minutes, SA declares the story authentic. Asha finds it astonishing that humans aren't more suspicious of her. She is still an android. She could have easily hacked SA120 to make it say what she wanted. Fortunately, the group didn't ask her about it. A random person speaks up next. You can move around in total freedom. We are going to offer you a place to stay. To tell you the truth, if you hadn't told us you were an android, we'd never have known. Your clothes, your attitude, you seemed human in every way. We are going to trust you. But please know that despite our sociological and general social advancements, we are relieved to know that horrible people have perished in this dome, but equally pained for the most innocent or those questioning their actions. You can find out more at the library. SA120 will share with you our language, which is called Vesper. You are now free to go. Take care of yourself. Asha realizes for a moment. Could she be considered human? If humans themselves couldn't figure it out, what does it mean to be human? There are indeed physical specificities, of which she ticks all the boxes, intellectual specificities, which she also ticks all the boxes. She's also able to learn and feel thanks to the pirate program. Isn't that what it's all about? Learning and feeling? She also remembers being afraid for her life when Zephyra and her partners ambushed her. And when she fell into the maelstrom, she even instinctively took a breath when there was no need to do so, something the program itself couldn't associate with any memory in the past. She deeply wishes to feel human. Isn't that the most important? Thank you so much for your warm welcome, your kindness, and the trust you've placed in me. I look forward to learn more. Take care of yourselves too. Asha withdraws, escorted by SA-120, who directs her to her living area, and at the same time shares all the data on Fespach. However, Asha has taken longer than before to store the data. She is surprised, but thinks nothing of it, far too excited by what she is experiencing. Along the way, they cross paths with lots of people, most of them mixed. She feels soothed and feels so many emotions as she walks forward, observing her surroundings with great passion, touched by what she is living. After a few minutes' walk, they arrive at the building that will house Asha during her stay. Inside, next to each front door, is a large pot, which Asha glances at and realizes that it's actually a zir, the desert fridge, with vegetables and little water inside. They climb to the second floor. And arrive at Asha's room, where the temperature is nice and cool. She asks what the houses are made of, and 120 replies that some are made of hemp, others of adobe, depending on the means they had at their disposal, whether in terms of resources, androids, or people. SA reminds her that the library is entirely at her disposal. Asha nods in agreement. In a corner of the room is a bed, accompanied by storage cupboards, 2 pretty handcrafted chairs, and a table. She smiles, pleased with how far she's come.